Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at an epic, sweeping history of something so tiny you probably don't even notice it's there, until it's missing. We're going to explore exactly how the humble screw thread completely shaped modern human civilization and, honestly, absolutely revolutionized manufacturing. This isn't just some boring story about metal. It's a story of fierce rivalries, massive egos, and how a simple standard kept the world from literally falling apart.
Seriously, think about it. What were you doing this morning? Because if you were anywhere near a new piece of flat-pack furniture, you were probably struggling to assemble a $20 IKEA side table. And we all know that universal, completely mind-losing frustration of dropping one single, tiny metal screw and losing it in the shag carpet. It literally ruins your entire day. But what if I told you that in the grand scheme of history, you actually have it incredibly easy?
Imagine if every single screw in that IKEA box was a unique, bespoke little snowflake hand-filed by someone in a basement who definitely didn't care about your furniture. Well, for about 2 millennia, that was the entirety of human existence. We lived in this era of bespoke chaos. If a single nut or bolt on your incredibly expensive machine snapped, you were essentially done. Your machine instantly became a really heavy paperweight because literally no other nut in the world would fit that specific bolt. They were unique matching sets. And this system worked fine when things were slow, but it completely collapsed when the Industrial Revolution hit. Machines got massive, speeds increased, and the need for instant replacement parts became a hard reality.
So, how did we actually get there? The original concept of the screw thread is actually ancient. Around 400 BC, Greek big brains like Archytas of Tarentum and Archimedes realized a helix could lift water or squeeze grapes for wine. Moving along the timeline to the Roman Empire, they used early bespoke screws for door locks and even surgical speculums, which sounds like an absolute nightmare, right? By the Middle Ages, these fasteners were crucial for military armor and siege engines, but it was still a complete free-for-all. Blacksmiths hammered out a blank, and then a craftsman known as a girder would literally hand-file the shallow tracks by eye. Every factory owner in the early 1800s was in a forced, monogamous relationship with their bolts. You couldn't just go buy a replacement, you had to pay a master craftsman to forge a whole new one from scratch.
So, the crucial point is, someone had to stop the madness. Which brings us to Section 1, Whitworth's Industrial Flex.
Enter Joseph Whitworth in 1841. This guy was an absolute engineering baddie. He had apprenticed under Henry Moseley, the inventor of the power-driven screw-cutting lathe, so he understood exactly how chaotic and inefficient the current system was. He decided he was officially done with the irregular mongrel threads everyone was making. Whitworth went on a literal revenge tour across England, collecting sample screws from workshops like he was catching Pokémon. He quickly realized everyone was just making it up as they went along, and he set out to destroy that chaos. He proposed the ultimate flex to force the British Empire into order, a single national standard. His magic number was 55. He decided the thread angle should be exactly 55 degrees, with a specific number of threads per inch for every diameter. He was essentially telling every engineer in the country that their unique designs were garbage and they needed to fall in line. The railway companies, who were the tech giants of their day, were the first to jump on board. They adopted the strict 55-degree standard because they realized they absolutely could not run a transcontinental empire if their bolts kept vibrating off and couldn't be replaced with off-the-shelf parts.
But the moment Whitworth proved he wasn't just a nerd with a ruler comes down to the number 190. For the Great Exhibition of 1851, the construction firm Fox Henderson was tasked with building the Crystal Palace, this massive glass and iron marvel. And they had an impossible deadline of just 190 days. It shouldn't have been possible, but they used Whitworth's standardized interchangeable nuts and bolts. It acted like Lego for Victorian giants. They finished the massive glass house right on time, and the entire world looked at that achievement and realized standardization was the absolute only way to win the industrial game.
Real quick before we leave Whitworth, we have to mention this wild tangent. He used his obsession with precision to invent what was essentially the world's first sniper rifle. The Whitworth rifle fired elongated hexagonal bullets out of a perfectly matched hexagonal barrel. It was so accurate it could hit a bullseye from 500 yards away. It was a serious piece of hardware. Queen Victoria herself fired the first shot at a meeting in 1860, and Confederate sharpshooters later used them to magically pick off Union officers from impossible distances. But, once you're at the top, someone always tries to knock you off. Let's move to Section 2, the transatlantic thread wars.
Across the pond, an American engineer named William Sellers looked at Whitworth's 55-degree rounded threads and simply thought, I can do better. Sellers possessed ultimate main character energy. He was the kind of legend who painted all his machines a uniform shade of gray, just so everyone in the industry instantly knew they were his. He wasn't about to just copy the British standard, he wanted to absolutely revolutionize it.
And this brilliantly illustrates how he did it. While the British stubbornly stuck to Whitworth's 55-degree angle with rounded roots, Sellers dropped his own standard in 1864, a 60-degree angle with a flat top and bottom. The real game-changer here was the manufacturing speed. See, Whitworth's rounded threads required 3 different kinds of cutters just to manufacture. Sellers' flat version required only 1 cutter and 1 lathe. It was an absolute speed run for American industry. Sellers convinced the U.S. Navy and major railroads to adopt his 60-degree thread. By the time the American Civil War broke out, this demand for precision and speed actually became government law. Thanks to new metallurgy and precision taps and dies, the North won the logistical war by ensuring that a bolt made in a Rhode Island factory would perfectly fit a nut on a cannon in Virginia.
This intense rivalry pushed industrial capacity to new heights, but eventually, having 2 competing global standards became a massive liability. That takes us into the 20th century, where differing standards escalated from an engineering debate into a literal life-or-death crisis. Section 3. Global Unity and Spycraft. Just imagine being in a World War foxhole for a second. You're taking fire, trying to fix a jammed machine gun, and you suddenly realize the replacement nut you have is a British 55-degree Whitworth, but your bolt is an American 60-degree Sellers. They don't interchange. The equipment completely fails. During the World Wars, this lack of interchangeability between Allied equipment was deadly. Men literally lost their lives on the battlefield simply because 2 guys a century earlier couldn't agree on the angle of a triangle. It was an absolute logistical nightmare that forced the world to finally wake up.
So in 1948, the major powers, the US, Britain, and Canada, finally kissed and made up. They formed an alliance to create the unified thread system. In a pretty brilliant compromise, they merged Sellers' easier-to-manufacture 60-degree angle with Whitworth's rounded roots, which offered better fatigue strength. This unification birthed the isometric thread that we rely on for almost all global infrastructure today. It is essentially the final boss of fastener standards.
But standardization also brought some highly creative and honestly highly shady applications. During World War II and the Cold War, organizations like the OSS and the KGB utilized perfectly standardized industrial bolts as dead drops. They would hollow out a bolt, stash a secret document or microfilm inside, and replace a regular bolt on a random farm gate with this secret container. Nobody would ever suspect a thing. They even reverse-threaded the caps, so if an unsuspecting civilian tried to unscrew it, they'd actually just be tightening it further. Genius, right?
Bringing it to today, these simple helices have evolved far beyond basic iron. We use exotic nickel-based alloys to manufacture bolts that can survive the unimaginable heat and pressure inside a high-powered jet engine. We have highly specialized components like sex bolts for binding paper, J-bolts for heavy tie-downs, and massive structural bolts that are so strong they've entirely replaced traditional rivets in skyscraper construction. Basically, every time you drive over a pothole and your car doesn't instantly disintegrate into 1,000 pieces, you have standard threads to thank for it.
To wrap up our historical rivalry, Joseph Whitworth died in Monte Carlo in 1887. Knowing his personality, he was probably still profoundly annoyed that anyone, anywhere in the world was still using mongrel threads. But he left his massive fortune to fund scholarships for young engineers, ensuring that the next generation would inherit and carry forward his absolute obsession with precision.
So the next time you drop an IKEA screw and watch it vanish into your carpet, don't just swear. Take a second to realize that you are holding 2,000 years of engineering spite, fierce rivalry, and massive main character energy right in the palm of your hand. Because without those standards, literally everything you own would be a pile of trash. I want to pass it over to you now. Have you ever had a screw-loose moment while trying to build something? And what fascinating piece of everyday tech should we dive into for our next explainer? Let us know. Thanks for learning with us today.